There is a sixth sense beyond that which is known to man. It is a sense that is as sought after as the Holy Grail and as precious as immortality. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and entertainment, and it lies at the pit of a man's fears and the summit of his genius. This sense, of course, is a sense of humor, and this is Sense of Humor TV.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sense of Humor TV. We're back today with a really special guest, my paisan from another Maison over here.
Hey, what's happening?
Joe Bartnick, Pittsburgh legend. And,
no, I don't know about that.
Well, in my community, definitely Pittsburgh legend. I got the Franco jersey on because the.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah, I had a Rocky.
And you were at the game, which is that you deserve a Purple Heart because it was like -20.
Dude.
But thank God they won that. We can swear, right?
Yeah.
Thank God they won that fucking game. No, I'll tell you, because they had Mean Joe crying in the snow for Franco. Like, when you make Mean Joe miss his family on Christmas Eve, you better win that fucking game.
Dude. I'm telling you.
There's no other way around it.
We ended up ponying up for club seats just so we could warm up at halftime, you know? But.
How's that? What do you mean?
So they have like the club seats where you can like go indoors like during.
Oh, like pay to be in the club.
Yeah. So we paid because I mean the tickets were so cheap because no one wanted to go because of how cold it was.
Right.
But so we ended up ponying up for some club seats. My brother got it for my birthday because the game was on my birthday too.
Oh, right on,
so
right on.
It was like they were.
So there's an asterisk next to your ticket for being out in the elements.
100. Yeah. Well, that's the funniest part. Is my little brother, he watched the first quarter and the fourth quarter, the whole middle. He was like, "I'm not sitting in this." And I went out at halftime too, obviously, to watch the Franco tribute. Yeah. And then I was like, "All right, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry." And then this lady next to me just started, and I was like, "No, you're gonna make me cry now." Like, yeah, but yeah,
that place gets cold. The coldest I ever was in my life, really. One of the three coldest I ever was in my life, and I polar plunged in Alaska.
Oh shit!
Was Penguins Flyers outdoor game there like maybe 7 years ago, 6 years ago. The day before, it was like 75 degrees, and the Penguins are catching footballs on the field. It was gorgeous. And then it's funny because I'm actually wearing my, I had to cover it because I have a stain on my shirt, my Trib Media.
Oh, there you go.
So I had a media pass.
Oh, so you're on the field.
So I was in the box.
Oh, okay.
So you can't, I was technically a reporter for the Trib. And no, because I was doing some shows for the Trib and stuff. So you can't wear like any kind of gear in the press box.
Gotcha.
So I literally just had like a windbreaker and basically just a windbreaker. And I did have a Penguin hat though. And so I know a lady at the NHL at the NHL, and we were like hanging out. And she goes, "Do you want front row seats?" So maybe some commissioner, somebody didn't, not the commissioner, but I actually met the commissioner that day, but somebody didn't show up, I guess. So I go, "Yeah, I'll go down there." So I went down. I go, "Yeah, that sounds great." So after like I had lunch with Madden and Rossi and stuff, and I went down. So then we were winning like 3-1. And I'm like, well, now I can't go to the press box and warm up like that. I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah.
Other than like for my daughter, beating the Flyers is the only thing I would have put myself through like that. Like because it turned to be like about 30 degrees. I just had like a light windbreaker. You know,
I remember what game you're talking about.
Remember when Sylvester, when he gets like pneumonia, how he puts his feet in water and he's like shaking with a blanket? Like I was doing that in between periods. This lady, she goes, "Are you okay? Do we need to call an ambulance?" Like I'm like, I can't leave. I can't.
I don't know what it is. If it's like the air that comes off the water, or why it's like because when you're giving me flashbacks, that is the coldest I've ever been. Wasn't even that Steeler game. It was when the Steelers played the Dolphins in the playoffs a couple years ago, and like when Bud Dupree like killed Matt Moore on the field. Like it was probably the worst hit I've ever seen in person. Like he literally killed this guy. But I remember like it's all Miami fans. They were all gone by halftime. Like and I remember buying a beer and it was so cold. It was frozen solid, and I couldn't even crack the tab of the beer to open it because of how cold it was.
The worst weather I was ever at a Steeler game was for my birthday. A buddy of mine, I used to live in San Francisco. He had season tickets to the Niners. He gave me his tickets for the Niners, and it was like the last game of the year. It was one of the only years where Cower didn't have they weren't going to. One of the only times that the Steeler game didn't matter in like late November, December, and it just stormed, and it was like 45 degrees outside, and it was so funny because you could tell there was like Niner fans that were like dressed pretty good. Then there was your West Coast Steeler fans that had no idea. And then there was everyone from Pittsburgh that really had their winter gear.
Yep.
It gets going to be cold.
Yep.
And we crushed them so hard. You might remember the game from watching on television. That by the end of the game, the seats were empty at Candlestick, and there was just like 20,000 Steeler fans behind the bench going, "Here we go,
That's
Steelers!"
amazing.
Yeah, and we drank so much that I drove home. That's why I still drunk and drive. It was like time traveling. Like I woke up like Monday at like 4 p.m. Like, I don't know what happened. Like after the game, like what happened?
Yeah, when I went to that Franco game, I wore a million layers and then a ski coat, and then I borrowed my girlfriend's dad has a 5XL Franco jersey, so I was wearing that over everything. So I mean, I literally was like the dude in what is it, A Christmas Story or whatever. Like
right.
Literally how I was walking around, but I didn't care. I was like, people don't like when you're a Pittsburgher, like you were saying, it's like being warm is the priority. I don't care how I look like at all.
This is how much of a Nancy I've turned into. I went to the Steelers Carolina game in Carolina this year. Like maybe 45, 50 degrees. I had like 9 layers on, and I was still cold. Like I had my hat. I had 2 hats on, and then we had be able to go in the box. So I watched like half the game inside at the bar. It was like they're like, "You're not going back out there." I'm like, "It's cold." They're like, "It's 47 degrees." I'm like, "I'm cold."
This is actually could be a good transition into how we met. Was I remember I saw you at Supernova. R.I.P. I don't think the club is even open anymore. But I saw you at
Well,
Supernova.
goddamn, it's rained every day except 3. Like every show has been canceled.
But I remember just seeing you, and I was like, dude, sick mustache. And then you were like, oh, it's funny you said that because I was on the field at a Penn State football game, and like somebody thought I was their old football coach because of my mustache. And all I heard when you said that, I was like, Penn State? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm from Pennsylvania. And I was like, so am I. And you're like, oh, well, I'm from Pittsburgh. And I was like, so am I. And you're like, oh yeah, well, I'm from the South Hills. And I was like, so am I. And then next thing led to another. And then you asked me that night to open for you last year, and so that was awesome.
It was a good time. You did great in Pittsburgh. We're coming back next week.
Yep.
April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day. What a great day to tell
Penguin
some jokes.
games. You know what's so funny? Last night at the Improv, a guy came up to me after the show. His dad is from Bethel Park.
No way.
And he literally lives right where I grew. He lives right near Danny's Pizza is where he grew up.
Shout out Danny's.
And he's like, what should I tell what would my dad would even? I go, well, ask him if he likes Danny's hoagies. He goes, oh, I know Danny's hoagies. I've had those before.
My family's business is in Bethel Park, so
oh, right on.
I grew up driving past Danny's. Like when I would go help, with my stepdad's work, I would like always stop there and get hoagies and wings and stuff.
Here's what I learned this time. They actually sell half a hoagie.
Do they?
They sell half because here's why, right? Because my dad, for some reason, he wanted the meatball sub. He didn't want just the standard Italian hoagie, which I love. It's like I have one every time I go back. What's funny is, as much as I love Permanis, I always get Permanis when I'm home too.
I was like, the more we hang out, the more similar.
I always have to get a Danny's.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
So what's funny is that so my mom is like, so we call my mom. Me and my dad were steaming. We went for steam.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to treat you for Danny's. Oh, that's great. He goes, well, I want to get a meatball. Sometimes across my old teeth, he goes, I want to get a meatball. I'm like, get you one. I go, I'm going to call mom, and she wants one. And she goes, I go, she just wants a half. She goes, yeah, just get me a half. And I go, they sell halves?
Yeah, I wouldn't have known.
No, because I had to ask. Because if I would have got her one, they cut in half, then the whole day she would have been on me for eating the other half of hers. Like, you already had one. You don't need that other half. You're gonna gain all that weight back again. There's no reason you need to eat 1.5. One's enough. One's enough for everybody. Nobody needs another half. Why do you have to have the other half? So I just wanted to make sure it's like there's not going to be like another half in the bag that I have to eat it.
Yeah, you're gonna. Yeah, right. You're not gonna throw away Danny's sub.
Throw it away. I mean, it can't even sit in the fridge. Like, like if it's in there for 2 hours, I'm gonna have to eat the rest of it. Like, I can't let it sit there.
That's amazing. That's like that joke you did the other night about the slice of pizza.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I was cracking up.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it's in the special. And I'm still doing it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of stuff I've been, it's especially keep trying to push out, but it's like a nice little chunk. So keep that in.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's why you brought up the special. Let's stick on the thing of comedy. Joe obviously is a huge touring comic in the comedy scene. Has done the Garden. You've done some really awesome venues.
Bill Burr did the Garden. He was nice enough to ask me to perform. I had a great set, but everyone's like, "Oh, you played the Garden." Like Bill Burr sold 18,000 tickets. I had 2 comps, and my comp heckled me.
No.
Gino Bisconte.
Oh, was it Gino?
Gino Bisconte. I mean, we're in the round, and this is how I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, to my own horn. I did have a phenomenal set. Me and Verzi, both were great friends, and were Bill's openers. And we both it was the best. Because they said, break it down in 4 corners, make it 4 theaters. I went each way twice, and it ended perfectly. It was the best set of my life. Well, I was one of the 5 best sets of my life. But long story short, so I'm on the second turnaround, and I hear, "Hey, you F word for gay people." I don't want to get canceled.
Yeah,
now.
right.
So I'm thinking, I waited 22 years to get to the Garden. You think that's gonna make me fold?
Yeah,
like
right.
That's gonna be the one.
It's
Like,
gonna take a lot more. Yeah.
And then like at the after party, he's like, "Did you hear me yell at you?" I'm like, "That was you."
That was you. Yeah.
But it is par for his course because Gino is one of the greatest paisans ever. He's one of my best friends.
That's great.
It's so fun. Only Gino would do that though.
But you talking about one of my not so famous, trying to make famous sayings. What I always say is, sometimes you don't toot your own horn, you don't hear any music. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. So I don't, I try, because, same thing. The comics, I feel like in general, were very like, well, at least a lot of the ones I like to be around are pretty humble. You know what I mean? And then, but I'm, you don't want to brag, you don't want to whatever, but this is definitely the time to do it because that's an awesome
Well, what's funny is I was just thinking about that because I'm doing the joke now about taking compliments. Mm-hmm. You heard some of it, and I was working on it, so I'm thinking like, yeah, like most people, they cringe or it gets weird when someone's complimenting you. Mm-hmm. The people that accept them are like they're psychos, right?
100%. 100%.
Someone's like, "Hey, I really like that," whatever. Oh yeah, it's great, right? Like,
yeah, or like they'll get off stage and they didn't do good, and they'll be like, "Oh, I just killed," and you're like, "We'll let you know if you did." Trust me, you don't need to. Yeah, I was in the room. You don't need to tell us, but
right.
But I never really, because some of the stuff I've been waiting to ask you for the podcast, but like,
oh, okay,
like,
no, but not to be humble or whatever. I guess it'd be humble. But here's the funny thing that I always think about this because another Pittsburgh guy. It's my favorite thing because for a long time, especially in New York, because it was now more people were playing the Garden. Like I said, Bill did, but I had a lot of street cred as playing the Garden around New York, and I loved it. People like, you do podcasts over. You want to talk about it? Why are we talking about it? And I just remember Joe Namath on David Letterman. It was the best because Letterman just goes, Super Bowl III. I guess you're sick of talking about it. And he goes, "Why would I be sick of talking about it? It was the greatest moment of my life. I'm never sick of talking about it." And that's what I have to always say. I don't even think that because sometimes I'll talk about it every second about the Garden. Because here's the funny thing, too, is because I so enjoyed it. Because like about a month before we did the Forum, and Dean Del Rey went first. He had a great set. And it was just kind of like I just ran out there to keep the energy up. Mm-hmm. But the Garden, I went first, and well, first of all, it was in the round. And when I got there, I went to our tour manager. I'm like, "It's in the round?" He goes, "Yeah, is that a problem?" I go, No, I was like, it got me a little bit like
off guard.
Yeah, a little bit. And I went down, I touched the ice, and he's like, "Why are you touching the ice between the boards?" I'm like, "Mary Lemieux played on this ice." And then you go through, and it's like, you go backstage, and then there's a huge picture. It says Sinatra in the round in the and it's just like,
and you're like, "Oh no, I'm about to. That's good.
Well,
it's
like if this is like, and it's like Ali Frazier, WrestleMania 1. It's the guard. So you just get so jacked, and I enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed it because they played my walk up music, which is AC/DC, and like I didn't run out. I ran out around, and then when I got to the last couple steps, I just took my time, and I felt like Neil Armstrong when you can see his steps. Like I looked down, like I'm walking on stage. Like I soaked in those couple seconds of like this. Don't forget, this is the moment. All right, I'm sorry.
No.
It's like that's because I knew in the moment, enjoy it, because I mean it's the Garden.
What's like the biggest like difference of like doing like I couldn't imagine doing 18,000 people. That's insane to me. So like, what's the biggest difference from doing like an arena to like just like a regular like spot? Like what was it like? Did you have to like project more? Like you said, you had to kind of like treat like the stage in 4 different like parts, or
well, that any big theater you just gotta project and you go big, and that's why. And I've actually learned my probably 4 managers ago told me, because you're better in a big room, because that's when I started probably 10 years in. I started opening for Lisa Lampanelli everywhere.
Okay,
and she was a big theater act at that point. So you go big, and then all of a sudden, I'm used to being big and loud, and me. And then you're in the belly room, and you're like scaring little Asian people in the front row. So, but all it really is you have to fill the stage. Like you can't just. I mean, now one of the greatest experiences I've ever seen and loved, and I was blown away, was Ron White at the Warfield, which is a huge theater in San Francisco. I used to work security at, and I was lucky enough to play with Lisa and Dave Attell. Ron White just stood there and had a cigar and his big thing of bourbon, and just had 4,000 people just all watching. Listen, you could hear a pin drop when he talked, and that he filled the whole. So I kind of do it a little bit. I kind of walk around a little more and kind of get a little bigger. But at any rate, you just have to feel the stage. You don't want to look like a little dime.
Gotcha.
But now, like when I first started doing big shows like that, the technology was so bad. When we'd be doing like Indian reservations and stuff, where it's like it'd be like 2 seconds behind. Like the big screens would be like behind, so you'd have
delayed,
to wait a second for them to get the joke, hear it, and laugh.
Oh man!
But now places like almost every place is like the Garden was like it was instant.
It was right on.
It was instant.
That's just again, like hopefully one day I'll know what that feels like. But it's so crazy to me because like I guess I just like I said, I mean I probably done a couple hundred people, and thousands just seems like insane.
It's all just doing your act. If you have an act, it's actually easier to do those big rooms because people pay more money. There's no waitresses walking in front of them. No one's having their bachelorette party. They're all facing you. They came to see the show, whether they came to see Bill or Lisa or Dave Attell or Dave Chappelle or whoever. They came to see the show, and they figured if you're on the show, you must be pretty good.
There you go.
So they're all kind of wound up to laugh. You just have to bring them a show.
That makes a lot of sense.
It has to be a show. It can't be like, oh, well, I'm thinking about where do you go to college? It has to be come out there, and that's the only 2 times I ever, besides television sets, the only 2 times I've ever rehearsed, or not even rehearsed, but wrote down and made sure and timed out my jokes was for the Garden in the Forum, because I'm like, you don't want to look like. What am I gonna say in front of 18,000 people? You want to have a plan.
Tighten it up a little.
Whatever it is, like this is this ship I'm sinking with. Now not that I'm jaded, but now when I play arenas with Bill, I just go out and fuck around.
Yeah.
But it's not the Garden. It's not the Garden.
100%. Yeah, that's. That's just cool. I'm just curious. That's all I'm asking because
no,
cool
please. I don't want to come off as a pompous asshole.
No, not at all. Not at all. You need another beer?
I'm good right now.
Okay. But yeah, keep going on the on the comedy thing is
I've been talking so much I haven't had time to drink.
the other thing I wanted to bring up is like so you started in San Francisco, correct?
I started in San Francisco in 1997. Yeah.
And what like did you like? Everyone has a different starting story, I guess. But like, did you like always want to do comedy? Were you always interested in it, or like, what made you get up for the first time?
I just always wanted to be Johnny Carson, David Letterman. Dennis Miller grew up he grew up in Castle Shannon, right where I first was born around. Well, I was born in the South Side. We lived down there for a minute.
Okay.
And then we lived in Castle Shannon, right by the Isoplex.
I know it.
That's where we lived. I grew up, and that's where Dennis Miller grew up. So I grew up right
First
around
time I got arrested was Castle Shannon police.
And then I moved to my family moved to Baldwin, and that's where my grandparents lived. Like we live right next. Like we all like 5 family Italians. Like we all live within like 1 block of each other.
Mm-hmm.
But Dennis Miller went to St. Anne's, and his right on that trolley stop right there. And his mom used to go into the doctor's office my mom worked at.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you went to Seton, right?
I went to Seton, yeah.
Okay.
But Dennis Miller has always just been, Dennis Miller, and then Rodney, and then I just always wanted to be a comedian. And I acted in some high school plays, and we did talent shows. But I'm older than you. Back in those days, Pittsburgh was like, coffee shop. We got coffee right here. What are you, queer? Like there's no comedy scene. It's like Randy. It's like basically Jimmy Crenn and Randy and Bill, the DVE guys. I work at DVE once a week. They kind of helped create the comedy scene.
Yeah.
And before that, so I just remember Robin Williams live at the Punchline, and I'm like San Francisco, because in those days there was no internet, so there was New York, LA, and then the 2 JV cities where you learned to get good at were San Francisco and Boston. And I just loved San Francisco. I love the Grateful Dead. I love California, and so that's why I picked San Francisco.
What was the did you just like go to an open mic, or what was your first like experience?
My first experience was I went out to San Francisco for a summer. My buddy lived in Pacifica on the ocean on a road that the earthquake knocked out, and I'm like, I'm gonna go work at the Punchline, and start working at the Punchline. And Rick Bates, who became one of the managers, was a great friend. He's like, I can't hire you for the summer because you're gonna leave in 3 months. I go, fair enough. And then I went back, and like 2 years later, I'll leave out about 3 years. It's we can
fast forward.
Yeah, and I started working there. I went in for another job there, and it's owned by Bill Graham, so they also own the Fillmore and the Warfield. So I started working for Bill Graham. I did security at the Warfield and the Fillmore forever.
Oh, wow.
And I started answering phones in the day at the Punchline. I worked the door at the Punchline a lot. And then it got to the point where I was just doing comedy all the time, and I just answer phones in the day. And it got to the point where I just did comedy all the time. And once a year, I'd give a reunion door shift at the Punchline. If they were completely out of everybody,
they needed somebody to fill in.
Yeah, but that was my master's degree of learning not what to do on stage, but knowing what not to do. And that was the glory beginning of Jeff Wills was the booker, and now he's the president of Live Nation Comedy.
Oh shit!
So he's the one that has in charge of all the tours, like Chappelle, Chris Rock, Burr, everybody.
Wow.
So he booked me. So he brought back. He single-handedly kind of brought comedy back to America. And at the Punchline, he started booking these New York acts, which no one really knew anywhere but New York. So he would bring in Attell, Louis C.K., Louis Black, Wanda Sykes,
wow.
Dave Chappelle.
Wow.
So I got to open for these guys and girls and Lampanelli, and they all became great friends of mine. And that's how Dave Attell and Lampanelli, and now Burr, but Dave Attell gave me my first real big shot, and then Lampanelli bought me my Cadillac. And all because I worked, and so he would just call me. I worked all the time, and before it was like, well, if you work here, you can't do comedy. They don't want that. But it was just like, well, this guy's funny. Like, don't.
That's
and then it's kind of like, and so I opened it up for everybody after that. Like
that's the one thing that I've noticed since like becoming friends with you is like everybody knows you. Like like when I bring you up to comics, they're all like, "Oh yeah, I know Joey's a fucking killer." Like, blah, blah, blah.
Oh really? No,
Yeah, like,
that's a nice thing to say.
Even my one dude who he was working the door, real tall black dude, Brandon Cheeks at the Laugh Factory for a while. He just left, but I was talking to him.
Oh,
the
he
other day.
left?
Yeah,
Like-
he just left.
like last night, or wasn't he there like a week ago?
Yeah, he's
a
like very
big football dude.
Yeah, real tall, and
Yeah.
I was, we were just talking about what's going on, and I was telling him I was going back to Pittsburgh and then doing New York for 10 days, and he's like, "What are you doing in Pittsburgh?" And I told him I was doing the show with you, and I was like, "You know Joe?" And he goes, "Oh fuck yeah!" He's like, "Man, he's a fucking killer. Like every time I see him at the factory, he's fucking murdering." And I was like, "All right, yeah." Like
We needed him the other midnight show too. I'm like, where's he going? That guy, I love that guy.
yeah.
There's some people there's a couple out of hand dudes, and and then I went on last. So it was killer because that was like already. They were into me. It was so funny because like everyone got up stage. That were like it was Midnight Madness, and they were like, "Oh, watch out for this table, watch out for that table," and literally like at the end of the night, like I was taking pictures with every troublemaker. But that's just me. Late shows are like those are my people.
Yep. Yeah.
But I'm gonna miss that guy. Well, that stings. Well, I hope he's on the bigger and better things.
Yeah, it's kind of nice because we've been saying like I'm seeing him out more, and I think he was just like having to work there too much. So
Right.
it's cool for us because I'm like he's a funny dude and he's cool. So I'm like
Yeah,
I'm
no,
seeing you out again.
super good dude.
Super good dude. Yeah, but it was cool that I was like
But
I
they
said,
need
like,
some muscle in there, obviously.
Yeah. I mean I told
But
you.
cool muscle. That's the thing. Like, I hate comedy clubs where the security is like dicky. It's like that's
100%.
it puts a weird vibe in a comedy club door guys got to be cool, man. Just be cool. 'Cause
Yeah,
like,
like-
no one's there to be. Well, some people are, but that can be handled. But just like don't be. People come in a good mood.
It gives my one boy Chris, he's one of the door guys at the store, and he'll like joke with them when he's like when they're waiting in line to get up, and like he'll fuck with them, and it's like it puts them in a good mood already to like come in. And I notice it. I'm always appreciating it. I'm like, I'm glad that you're not like other people will be like, line up, don't do this, don't do that, and it's like, dude, relax. Like I'm here to have a good time.
Yeah, it's
to, like,
comedy.
Yeah, like not to. This isn't like you said the one night I was dying when you were like. I saw you and you were like, I feel like I just went through TSA. Like I was cracking up.
Oh yeah.
I was like, because again, like, that's again not the vibe you want, but it's cool when I see like the door dudes get out of their way and like fuck with the people and bring them up a little bit before they even go into the show. That's always cool.
Totally.
But yeah, man, that's cool. Like I said, I've always wondered like what made you get up, and that's cool that you kind of always had that interest in it. And then
yeah, we did a talent show. We did like 5 sketches, I think in my junior or senior year in high school, and like all the sketches were pretty good, but the one sketch just like killed.
Mm-hmm.
And you can never replace that. You can never replace the feel of crushing.
100%.
It's better than any drug, and I've done every drug. It's better than all of them. There's nothing like killing.
What was like? So when you went up for the first time, were you like addicted immediately, or like how did that work?
No, I ate it. I would say the first 3. I didn't really get a laugh, I would say, until about the 5th time I ever did comedy.
Really? What made you keep going then? Like, was it just?
What
like,
else am I gonna do?
Gotcha.
It's like.
Oh my god. It's fucking hilarious.
When you got to do it, you got to do it. I mean, I'm too old to bartend now, pretty much. So
I remember being so like, I was like, I just want to not like, I just want to get through it. I just remember going up and be like, I just want to get through it, and like, and I got through it, and I got so much adrenaline from it. I ran out the front door. I literally put the microphone down and sprinted out the front door.
Yeah,
I made the mistake too of telling the MC like this is my first time ever doing stand up, and so he announced it before I got on.
Oh, what kind of see when I started in San Francisco, there was probably 150 legitimate comics. Now it's not LA. Now there's like 1,000. There's like 1,000.
Right.
But it was like like 50 people that paid all their bills doing comedy, and then another like 100, and another 50 that did like worked part. In San Francisco at that point, you could like work at a record store 2 or 3 days a week, sell a little weed, and pay your rent. Like you could just be like a opener. And live with 4 people.
That's wild.
And pay your rent.
Yeah.
Like, it was like so there was like a good 100 to 125, 30 people that were like regular paid comics, professional comics, and then like another 100 that were like that would get up on a Sunday at the Punchline when it was like this. It's still the showcase, but that was like the main event within a 500 miles of the Sunday Showcase in San Francisco. And then so there's probably like 200 legitimate people that could do a set there and be fine, and then probably another 150 people that thought they were. So there's just so much comedy, and it was such a huge community that you knew like the class like you knew like the 3 or 4 classes ahead of you. Gotcha. And then like way ahead of you were like Dana Gould and like the legends, Bobcat. Yep. But it was like and then I knew like the 3 classes after me. But now when I go back, I'm like hoping to find someone to open for me. Like, oh, okay, you're funny. Yeah. But it was just anyway. The whole thing was we lived it, man. I feel like I'm at CBG, but it's like all day we just like smoke weed, go around, write jokes, hang out, get a slice of pizza. Like we do like 4 open mics a day. Just like that's and that's what I tell young kids. Like unless I know it's different because that was a huge city and it was way more. But unless you're doing like. When you start out, if you're not doing like 10 sets a week, you're not getting any better. True.
Yeah, I mean, that is the one thing that like, when I first like jumped in, people were, they were like, oh, why can't you just do this and work for the Penguins? I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like, I'm like, you can't. Like, you have to treat it like a full-time job. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the thing that I think people don't realize. And then the other part of it too is like people are like, oh, because it is a fun job, it's like people are like, oh, you're just out having fun. It's like, no, it's still work. Like you're still working, but it is the best job. Like at the same time.
Yeah, and I started before the internet, which, I mean, now, I don't know what I would do because it really the only thing I can do, but it was so much funner and easier before the internet.
See, I love that you said that because I've all the. Like older comics that I know, that I respect, they've said that too. And then some of the ones that are like, I'm like, oh, whatever. They're like, oh, it's so much easier now. I'm like, it's definitely, I feel like harder because of the internet. Like, you can get bigger, I guess, quicker. Maybe if something goes viral, but like, I don't know. I at least my personality, I think I would have preferred it the way like it used to be.
Well, not to come off as like an old, because I'm not bitter at all. Mm-hmm. There was just a system in place that everybody kind of weighed their way up the old-fashioned way. Like you got funnier, people took you under your wing, you went on the road, you worked your way up from host to feature to headliner, and it was just there's way more ma and pa comedies clubs where Absolutely. It's like the people who own the club, they just love comedy and they weren't trying to be they weren't the improv. The improvs were, I'm not trying to knock the improvs, but they knocked out a lot of ma and pa places that we've all bust our ass to get into. That we all took like, Greyhound to go open at, and then you can feature next time, and you want to headline Thursday, Sunday, and hey, you can do the whole week. So it's like it was a whole thing, and it just kind of it wasn't just this like I didn't have to come here to Saturday and do a podcast. Yeah. No one had the podcast. No one, I had to do a morning sketch. I didn't have to film anything. You show up at 7:00 and you do your set. And and you don't have to turn over. No one put out a special every year. And it just became work.
100%.
It was. I mean, it's still work to be great, and it's still work because you want to keep moving. And I enjoy writing and doing, but it wasn't. There was none of this other. There was and some people love it. I love doing my hockey podcast, and this is fun. I love you, but it's just like there was. You didn't have to do it. And now you have to do it.
Now you have to do it. And sometimes I'm sure you've been in way bigger rooms than me, so I'm sure that you see it more than me. But like sometimes you'll go and you'll be like this person's like not funny. Like why? And then next thing you know, they have like 1 million followers on TikTok or something like that. And it's like, oh, you're not really like doing stand up all the time. You're just able to sell tickets because you have TikTok fans or some shit.
Right, but I mean that was kind of always out there. Really? There was always like a sitcom star that or a soap opera star or a wrestler or there's always been
some kind of gimmick that got you the
Gotcha. And I know you earn a living any way you can make a living. Yeah. So that's always kind of been out there. Mm-hmm. It's just the day in day out work is and now it's like you're your own promoter. Getting back to the humble thing, like I hate putting myself out there. Like, hey, do this and do that, and hey, you don't have to do morning radio. You can do your own podcast. And it's like, yeah, I'd rather just get up and go screw around and eat breakfast. Yeah, you have to worry about how my podcast numbers are doing. Like, and the clubs did their own promotion. It wasn't all on you, kind of.
Gotcha. Yeah, like just I love hearing stories from back then because it just.
But I'm not. I don't want to come off as bitter because I'm not. Everything's cool.
No, yeah,
you know.
I know you aren't. It's cool to get. It's cool. It's just cool. I like hearing stories like that because you know, the old.
And I know a lot of people from Pittsburgh watching this. Like, it's a bitch about work. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, because it used to be. This is how pathetic or easy it used to be. Comic friends of mine used to bitch when they'd have like a 3-hour delay at like the Denver airport. It's like reading the USA Today 3 times is not work.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
I dug ditches for a living. Like I know what work. I'm from Pittsburgh. I know what work is.
Exactly.
I'm not complaining about work. I'm just saying it was just an easier existence.
100%. And like same thing.
It was more on merit
Uh-huh.
than it is now, kind of.
Yep. And that's
Because now it's more on hustle, and I'm not the biggest. I hustle, but I don't hustle.
Yeah, and that's
like I work hard. I don't hustle. If that makes any sense.
No,
Like if I have a writing gig or I get this, I'll bust my ass. But if it's like, hey, can you do this?
Yeah, and no, you're right though. Like it is kind of more of on a hustle thing now. Like even like to get my first spot at the store, I had to go for like 8 months and like hustle. You know what I mean? I was like, Jesus Christ, and then people like when I finally get up, they'll be like, I got DMs like, how'd you get on? Like blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, I had to go for 8 months and like make friends with people and like blah blah blah. And then they were like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm like, yeah, I didn't want to either. You know what I mean?
Well, that's like at the Punchline. It used to be you had to wait basically a year.
Shit.
To get on, and then Hutch, the old guy that used to control Sunday nights, which was the gatekeeper, he would ask like, "Hey, how's that guy doing at the like? If you've been there enough and you're cool and you've tipped nice and you haven't made any problems, they'll be like, hey, is he okay? Was he like, yeah, he's pretty funny? And then you get your shot, and that's always it. And you always get your shot near the end between all the big dogs, and if you do good, then you go first the next week. And if you do good twice in a row. In 2 weeks, then it's like then you're in. Then you're in. Then you're in the rotation.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. I like I said, I just who knows, but it's just my personality wise. I don't know if it's a Pittsburgh thing. I just feel like I would have preferred that. Like you say, like going around with the buddies, smoking, going to mics, like that. That's cool. Like that's fun. Like it was just more of a. It was a community. Now almost every city, because comedy is boom. It probably is boomed like 3 times since then. But now every city kind of has it. But in those days, it really was just kind of New York and San Francisco and Boston had like enough comics, enough work where there was a scene. Like in Pittsburgh, it was like Wysocki and Jimmy Crenn. There was like 4 guys. Well, that's the other thing
like
too. Is like I would always be like when I was starting, because I started out there, and then I was always like the people that I would run into that were like good. I'd always be like, man, you got to get out of here. You know what I mean? Like I love Pittsburgh too, but like. If I could make it work there, I would. But then, then I went to the Bay and then down here. But what brought you to LA? Was it work or was it?
Yeah, pretty much. Just can't be a big fish. I should have left like 2 years before, actually, probably. I just stayed because I loved living up there so much. You just you can't just be like, there's space for like 2 or 3 old guys or older guys that just kind of,
It was just a natural progression. You're like, I should get down to LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a second to grab some more drinks, and we'll be right back, guys.
All
right, guys, and we're back with some refreshed drinks here. Back on the mic. So we were just talking about coming down to LA and kind of the whole journey. So I guess the one question I was gonna ask you, which I think you already answered, was what was your favorite gig you did? It was probably the Garden at.
The Garden was sweet.
Or if you have any other,
Well, I did about maybe 6-7 years ago now, 8 years ago. I did the Mario Lemieux. I did a benefit for his.
Really?
Yeah, and there was, I forget the number now. It was like either 48 or 38 Stanley Cup rings in the room.
Wow.
That Bill Crawford counted.
Wow.
And that's not like assistant to the GM. That was like.
Yeah.
Like Slippery Rock and Trottier and the big guy.
Yeah. That's dope.
We weren't counting his owner rings. We were counting his.
Yeah. There is a difference, trust me, because, as you guys know from watching I have a ring,
Oh, yeah.
So, but mine's not a player ring. Like,
no,
the player rings are like.
But I wasn't trying to.
No.
I'm just saying, like, there's the ones. There was probably way more if we counted.
Oh, those. Gotcha.
Just counting guys that we knew for sure.
Yeah, but it is funny when I was like, mine is like, it's pretty nice, But it's like then you get a player's ring. It's like as big as my watch. You know what I mean? It's like literally you can't even wear those things. They're so egregious. Like, but
So that was but I was pretty nervous on that one. And
did you have to do any kind of different material doing that, or was that how?
So got the gig, and so I'm walking in. I'm just kind of like, and there's Nancy Argus, the big shot of the Lemieux charity, the foundation, and she goes, "Oh hi!" I'm like an imitator, and I'm not trying to. Whatever. She's a woman. She said, "Oh hi, do you want to go meet Mario?" And I go, let's wait till he's like,
you don't want to bother him, or
right?
whatever.
And then I just saw, and I go, "There's women here." She goes, "Oh yeah." I go, "Oh, I thought there was going to be no women here," and I'm literally was like stoned, like I'm like, and I go, I don't want to offend any, and I go, "Is Mario's wife here?" And she goes, "No." I go, "Oh, okay." Then I kind of relaxed a little bit, and then the guy came up and punched me right in the stomach. It was Pierre LaRouche.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he goes, "Hey, the comedian guy."
And you're like, "That's me."
And I was like, "Yeah, it's me." So then, I'm like, and then so Bill Crawford, it was the DV morning guys, and so Bill's like, "Hey, come here." So I go over there, and Bill is visibly nervous, and I'm not talking out of line. Mm-hmm. I mean, like he would admit it. You know what I mean? It's like it wasn't. He goes, "There's like 38 rings." Like he counted them already in the room. I go, "Oh boy!" Right? So we sit down, and we're like near the front, and then Randy comes in, and he's like, somehow his voice changed from the morning show. He's like, "Oh, I got pneumonia." Like, I'm gonna go up. I'm just gonna do like 2 minutes. I'm just gonna bring Bill up. We're like, "Oh, okay." So Bill went up. He had a good set, and then he did like a completely like one of his like only in Pittsburgh closers. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? One of those like just destroys.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh man. So I went up and so I went up. So about 10 minutes. So I told some stories about being a hockey fan before Lemieux came to town, because Trotch was there, and I said how Trottier was Lemieux before Lemieux was like the Islanders, and we talked some stories. I talked about Billy Smith scaring us at the Igloo when he was a kid, and all this stuff. And about 10 minutes in, I go, "Well, you don't send Lemieux over the boards to fight, and you don't send Bartnick in to be clean." I go, "So here we go." And I just launched into.
Did they like it?
I could just see the big guy's shadow in the back, like laughing up and down.
There you go.
And I'm just like, okay.
Thank God. Yeah.
And then I closed. Like it was good. The whole set was good.
That's great.
Done. And I get off stage, and literally, she goes, and Nancy comes up. She goes, "You want to meet Mario now?" I go, "Yeah." And Bill and Randy right there, like, "That was great. That was great." And then she goes to meet Randy. I go, "Yeah." And we look up, and he's right there. He's right there, and he goes, "Hey, fellas, Pittsburgh guy, hey, come here." Put his arm around me. He goes, "That's great stuff."
That's cool.
I'm just like, oh my God, and I'm just like, and he's so cool. He knew he meant so much. Like he just knew. He knows who he is.
Yeah.
It's so then his like the professional like foundation photographer took a picture of us, and I'm like, "Hey, because you know you're never gonna get those." I'm just like, "Hey, can I have?" And he's like, "Yeah, anything you want." Like, and I'm just like, so I got one with my camera.
Was that like the only time you've ever? Were you like? Was there any other like times you were like met somebody through like obviously being who you are, like that you were like starstruck or?
Well, as far as hockey goes, Andrzej Kopitar, when I worked for the NHL, he came out real quick. Like, I had a list of like players that I was going to interview, and it's like the wish list. And when he came out, I'm like, and my wife loves the video of it because we have all the not scraps, whatever it is, like the stuff we didn't use.
Yeah.
And you could just see how nervous I was. Like, I did a show in front of the Yankees, and I made me run back and look at my notebook because I'm like, Jeter's here.
Oh shit.
Jeter's here. Like,
oh shit.
Yeah. But I just got to finish the. So then he runs away. So Lemieux's like gone, and he's like gone. And Randy's like, "Hey, Lemieux never comes up to anybody. That's like getting called on the couch. Like,
really?
People go to him. Like that's
wow.
just, like they were all just like, wow,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And then Billy Guerin comes up, punches me.
I love Billy.
He punches me, and he's like, "Oh, that was great. We're hanging out." So then walk around a little bit more, and there's a Reki. And I tell him he's my grandma's favorite.
Recce.
The Wrecking Ball.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. The Wrecking Ball, and I'm gonna forget Trotz and Gary Roberts.
That's awesome.
And so we literally talked for like an hour.
That's dope.
Standing there, and then they're like, "You want to come gamble with us? You want to come gamble?" And I was like, I literally had to work on. I was working for Fox Sports then, and I had to go write some stuff. And I go, "No, I gotta go." Think, "Oh, okay," because I know that's one of the things. You know what? This is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
mess it up. Yeah.
Don't push it.
Yeah.
You had the best time. You're gonna look cheap. You're gonna do something. Just this is it. It doesn't get very nice. So I go to my room across from this is the old igloo then.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was right around there. It's because it was for their fantasy camp. Yeah. So the hotel was up by there, but we did it at the Rivers Casino was where the gig was. Anyway, long story short, I'm like sitting there, I type in my Fox Sports stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so thirsty. And I'm like, I go to the front desk. I gotta get something to drink. So I go down, and I go. It's one of those places that have like the Gatorades behind, or you pay. It's like the hotel where it's like a convenience store.
Oh.
So I'm like, yeah, can I get 2 Gatorades? And she literally goes, there's a guy yelling for you. Is your name Joe? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, there's a guy yelling for you. I turn around. It was Lemieux.
What, really?
Yeah. He goes, Joe, come here. He goes, tell Jay Caulfield. He goes, tell Jay wasn't there. Tell him your women's basketball joke.
That's
tell him your
hilarious.
women's basketball joke. So that's the end, the cherry on top of that story.
Yeah, that he like remembered your bit. And
yeah,
like,
and then someone said I was his favorite comic. I don't know if I was his favorite comic that night or his favorite comic he saw like in a month or whatever. So we used that forever as like my own like I was put on my gravestone like. Lemieux thought I was funny.
That's great. That's so great.
So I'll indulge. I have to indulge that story. So you're talking about my favorite gigs ever. And when I filmed my special, that was one of my all-time favorite gigs because even Burr said that's the best I've ever seen you. Like
when you're in the zone, you know it kind of thing.
Yeah, but I've had the 26 years. I've had a few good nights.
Yeah, I'm sure. To say the least. Yeah. But yeah, I always.
So I'm sorry if I took too long.
No.
You two people, but I had to finish. When Lemieux called me over, I'm like, oh man. And then there was like all these chicks there, and I was so into talking to Jay Caulfield, they must have thought I was gay.
Probably.
Like, why is he into talking to this guy?
And you're just like probably looking at him like, oh.
Yeah, they're all like kind of hitting on me and stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't, because they didn't even were in at the show. No, they were just like, he's hanging with Lemieux. What's he? And Lemieux's not talking to them, but it was like. They were just like circling around.
Yeah, hovering.
Yeah, and I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm talking to Jay Caulfield here. It doesn't get better than this.
Well, I always I love asking that because obviously like, formerly working in sports, like, I'd be around, famous people or athletes or whatever, And when I worked with the Raiders, I never really got starstruck because they were all like my age, like the players. It's like, I don't know these guys, But Rod Woodson, that's actually my going away present they got a signed ball from him. He was our DB coach at the time.
Oh, wow.
And my first ever jersey was a Rod Woodson jersey when I was a little baby. So I would always, when he would come around, I'd get real nervous and like, and I remember the one time I was like, I got to talk to him, right? And he's talking to Sal Sinceri, like the old pit linebacker.
Yeah.
Steeler and stuff. And we did a school gig and they were like playing like knockout, like basketball. And I just went up and I was like, hey Rod, like, I was like, hey coach, like, I just wanted to let you know, like, I'm from Pittsburgh. That's all I could get out. And Sal just immediately goes, oh, you're from Pittsburgh, huh? Because, people will say that and they'll be from like Erie, or some shit. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, what do you like better, Minios or Aielos? And I just go, honestly, I'm a Fiore's guy. And he just goes, oh shit, and like put his arm around me. And I talked to them for 15 minutes. I don't remember. I blacked out. I was like sitting there with the biggest smile on my face. Like, don't remember anything we talked about. Like, just completely. Like, that was definitely the most like starstruck I ever was. But and then it's funny too. Like the whole you talking about the Lemieux thing is like obviously he was my boss, for a few years. And when I worked for the Penguins, it was the complete opposite. Where it's like Sid, Gino, Fleury, Letang. Like I've been watching these guys since literally I was in elementary school. So like when I would be around them, it was a completely different feeling where I'd be like, oh fuck, like. And Fleury's he would slap me on the ass with like a stick and like he was the biggest goofball, and I was always just like if it was a totally different feeling. I'd be around the Raiders players and I'm like, I don't give a shit about you guys at all. And then I'd be around the Pens players and I'd be like fucking so nervous and starstruck.
Oh my god, yeah.
Just completely different feel. But and my boss too, my old boss. I mean, very funny relationship. But he's like an older like black dude, and I was like 20, young white. We had nothing in common, me and this guy, but we ended up becoming friends and stuff. And he like complete opposite because he was the PR guy when they were the LA Raiders, so he knew like every celebrity that you could possibly imagine.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, like everybody. So like he went to Michael Jackson's funeral, and I have a picture on the field of me in my Raiders gear with Carl Weathers because like
Apollo Creed.
Yeah. So that was
Axon Jackson.
Yeah, and that was when we became tight because I remember we got in the elevator and it was just me, him, and Carl, and he like was chatting with. And I was like, I went up to him after. I was like, dude, you know Carl Weathers? Like, that's fucking awesome. He's like, you want to get a picture with him? I was like, fuck yeah, I want to get a picture with him. You know, being a Paisan from fucking Pittsburgh, I was like, of course, like I love Rocky, and I would always fuck with him though. You know, we had a funny relationship, and I would always fuck with him. And I remember the one day we sat down for lunch, and it's me, him, and my other coworker, and I was fucking with him. I was like, Mike, is Michael Jackson the most famous person that you ever met? Because obviously he was more, and I was obviously joking, but he was way more of not like, again, I'm a comedian, so I would fuck around all the time, and he was like, and my other coworker was like, of course, and Mike was like, hold up, wait, let me think, and he literally sat there for 5 minutes like thinking, and we're just like sitting there like waiting, and he just goes, Muhammad Ali? And we're like, maybe.
Oh, Muhammad Ali's more famous than Michael Jackson.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I was like. It was just funny that
it's close. I mean, it's like top 5.
Yeah, like it's the only person you could probably compete with. You know what I mean? Because like he maybe.
And no Pele in those days, maybe.
Maybe.
But definitely Muhammad Ali is like.
I just was
because Muhammad Ali's in
like. Of course, he took the joke seriously, and then also came out with an answer that was
right.
maybe more famous.
Yeah, no, because Muhammad Ali is like famous in countries that don't speak English or have English music.
I was gonna say he was more of like a symbol too of like, you know, the times. I feel like
you ever see that? It's pretty famous, the YouTube clip of him dancing or shuffling in his black suit, and he punches Howard like he's gonna punch him.
Oh no,
his footwork is so crazy,
especially for a heavyweight.
Oh yeah, he's incredible. There's nothing sweeter than the late '60s sweet black suits.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing the UCLA, like the Lou Alcindor teams wearing them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like black dude in like a skin tight black suit with a white shirt, like a Reservoir Dog style.
Yeah,
like it's such a badass,
such a clean look. Yeah,
it's so. I mean, I can never look that good, but it's like you got to be skinny to pull that off. But it's like and when Muhammad Ali was like skinnier, he just pulls it off so brilliantly.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, that was. I mean, he had it all. He could talk good.
You got to see those footwork is like you can't even see his feet almost. He's moving them so fast. And he cuts at the end. It's like.
It's so crazy that he was a heavyweight and he could move like that. Like it would have been. Obviously, I never got to see any of his like fights like live or anything like that.
Right.
But
I remember him at the end. Like I remember when he lost to Leon Spinks. I had the Sports Illustrated cover Leon, and I remember he won. And I remember when he got beat by Larry Holmes. Like I never saw vintage. I remember like him. I remember being like Ken Norton, but I never remember
like prime.
Like you know Frazier and Foreman. Those are like the two. You know, big ones.
Yeah, it would have been.
My era is definitely the middleweights were in charge. I mean, besides Tyson, the middleweights to me that was the cream of the crop, and that's like the only time me and like my one of my all time greatest paisans, Paul Verzi.
Mm-hmm.
That's and me and Bill, we get on him because he's 10 years younger than us, so he's a little bit different generation.
Paul is.
Yeah, because I thought we grew up. Okay, we had Sugar Ray, Hagler, Duran. I'm forgetting like John the Beast Mugabe. We had Arguello. We had I'm forgetting like four or five people. Hearns, the Hitman. I'm forgetting like 2 other people, right? And Paul's thing is always that Mayweather is better than all of them. Okay. So, and I mean, we were in this expensive steakhouse in Vegas. One time when it was like, it's the first time I've ever been somewhere where they carried the drinks for you from the bar to the table. That's how I was like, oh wow, yeah. We were the last. There was another person there too, but we were the last 4 people in this whole. I think just the busboy was left. We were like the last 4 people, period, because we've had like some everyone was drinking then.
Mhm.
So we're just arguing about boxing like forever, getting louder and louder and louder. And I'm usually the voice of reason between Bill and Verzi because they'll really go.
Yeah.
And I always try to be like, sometimes I'll take a couple from Bill just to make it not be like a 10-8 round
Yeah.
all the time on Verzi.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'll step in and take a couple and then but it was like, I'm just like, Verz, I will give you, which I shouldn't. Because to me, everyone loves Hagler. Everyone Hagler Hearns maybe is like the greatest 3 rounds ever in boxing. But I think the even better fight is when he fought John the Beast Mugabe because it was more rounds, but it was like just a slugfest. The Beast Mugabe was insane. Long story short, I said I will give you, which is insane, but I'll give you everybody. I'll give you I should never give you Duran and Hearns, but I'll get. Oh, Aaron Pryor was in that era. Like I'll give you all those guys, but there is no way that he would ever beat Marvin or Sugar Ray.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's just no way. So then Verzi tried to come back. And finally, Burr just got so pissed he stood up and he throws down his credit card. He goes, "Get this kid a malt." That's one of our famous lines. "Get this kid a malt."
That's awesome because I've actually been obviously I wasn't alive for that era, but I've been since Tyson started his own podcast. He's been talking about all these guys like Roberto Duran and Hagler and all these.
Yeah.
So I've been going back and watching it and stuff. So I know exactly what you were talking about there and it's cool because I literally just a couple weeks ago just watched those fights on YouTube.
Oh.
So yeah, and I didn't know that was all like kind of happening at the same time. So yeah, that must have been a fucking wild time.
And I'm still heartbroken, and I still think that Hagler took a dive.
Really.
Well, then, 3 years later, he appears on Sports Illustrated, and he's like living the marvelous life, and he's in Italy as a movie star.
Yeah, right. Probably a better life than getting punched in the face by those fucking guys.
And not even to go against his character. Who knows if they put his kid in a box somewhere? Where like, hey, if you don't lose, only because he didn't take the body. In that whole fight, and that's his thing was he would just beat you to break your insides out.
I've seen him knock TKO people off body shots.
Yeah, so why he just didn't fight his fight? That's what makes me think more than anything. And Sugar Ray's an incredible boxer. It's not like I just love Marvin. Marvin ran 5 miles forward, 5 miles backwards.
Yeah, I've been watching that stuff just because it's I love Tyson and listening to his podcast has been really cool to hear some of the stories. But
and Tyson was just so ridiculous. I'll never forget this. I was in Fiji when I was pledging there for a minute. At University of Pittsburgh, there was 2 rooms. One had the NBA slam dunk contest, and this was the height of Jordan, Dominique, Spud. And we're all in that room watching it. In the other room, Tyson was fighting Buster Douglas. And people were coming in going, "Tyson's losing." We're just like, "Get the fuck out of here. We're watching fucking Dominique's. He just got a 50." You're like, no, he's like, it was insane that he lost.
You couldn't believe it probably. Yeah.
No.
Probably the worst odds ever.
He was such an incredible boxer. It's funny, he's like Kaiser Soze. You're still afraid of him.
Mm-hmm.
When people joke about him, I would never joke about Mike Tyson. They'd kill you. He was the baddest man alive.
So we went on a lot of some of your favorite athletes and stuff like that. But so I know you said when you were growing up, you loved Johnny and Letterman and stuff like that. But did you have any specific stand-ups that you were oh, this is my favorite comedian or anything like that?
Well, we had George Carlin, Occupation Fool, and that had the 7 dirty words on it. Not the official 7 dirty words one that's on the different album, but it had that one and a couple other things that were just great. Me and Joe Janisic listened to that all the time. We scratched it out so you know what was on the tape.
Mm-hmm.
I like well, comedy-wise, to me, everyone of my generation is, I'd say everyone, 75% of the people my age doing stand-up comedy are doing it because of Eddie Murphy Delirious.
Really?
The red suit Eddie.
Yep.
Because it was the biggest thing. I can still do that hour almost verbatim. It was everyone at the bus stop knew that Monday after it was on Saturday. It blew everybody away.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's still the funniest motherfucker. To me, the two specials that are 10 out of 10, Delirious and Bring the Pain, Chris Rock.
That's a
those are the two that are like, there's nothing. It's 100%.
I got to see Rock in Pittsburgh when he did the Benetton.
Oh,
Oh my God, he fucking murdered.
Right.
And it was great too because I was working for the Penguins at the time, and I had better seats than the CFO. And he saw me, and he was this guy Travis. I don't know if he still works there, but he was looking at me. And then the next day when he walked in, it was perfect time. He walked right by my desk and I go, "Did you see the show last night?" He goes, "How the fuck did you get this?" Like, and I was like, "My brother got it. It wasn't me." It was cool. It was really cool to see him live, and that was before I even had started doing stand-up.
Right. I saw him when I first started doing stand-up. He did Bring the Pain. I saw I'm spaced on his name. From Back to School.
Dangerfield?
Well, yes, but the crazy oh my God, Sam Kinison.
Oh, really?
I saw Sam live twice in Pittsburgh.
No
shit. First
shit,
time,
really?
It was incredible. The second time, I brought a chick, which was kind of stupid. But also, it was like I could tell that he just didn't care, and it was just kind of like he was like over it.
Yeah,
it was just like a weird show,
weird vibe.
But it was funny because he told the story about getting drunk in Portland and in the limo, and he was with Jimmy Schubert.
Really?
And I'm really good friends with Jimmy Schubert.
That's
funny. Jimmy has that story. I can tell that story too. But in comedy, yeah, I mean, just growing up, Eddie Murphy was like, Eddie Murphy. Excuse me again, and then. As a stand-up, Dave Attell. I mean, when I first went at the Punchline, everyone's like, you got to see Dave Attell. You got to see Dave Attell. And he would come in and work like Tuesday through Saturday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, he would just effing around and just like, you could see the jokes. He tried different tag, different this, different that, different that. Mm-hmm. And and so I'd work those shows every night and just sit there and just be in awe. And then he came out. His Insomniac, the cover of that album, it was inspired from my wedding invitation.
Really?
Yeah.
I want to see him live.
And he took me on the he gave me a start. He got me sets, and he got some of my biggest breaks came from him at the beginning.
Wow.
Because before he quit drinking, I was like his designated driver. Because I was like the only person that could really hang with him. I could drink toe to toe with him, like the whole time and hang out, and didn't have to worry about there's gonna be a problem with like I could handle any of it. I was crazier than big. I was pissed. I was Indian Joe. Was my nickname. So, but that was so Attell, Mitch. I got to meet Mitch Hedberg a bunch of times. He took me on the road.
Really?
Mitch.
He has such a unique style. Man.
Burr, obviously.
How'd you and Burr get so close? Just like doing the same clubs and just being around each other a bunch, or like did something specifically happen that made you guys tight?
This is a true story. It's a longer story. So, I wasn't working the Punchline anymore, but I was there all the time because before it got sold to Live Nation, it's like we just drank there every night till 6. We'd play wiffle ball outside. Like, when people were coming in for their jobs.
That's the most Pittsburgh shit I've ever heard in my life, playing wiffle ball outside the fucking mud.
When the sun was coming up, when regular people were coming in their suits to work, it's in downtown. So people were just like, "Where are these fucking junks fucking playing wiffle ball out in the little fucking park?" So, and actually, I think I in a way started Sketchfest. This is not even a humble brag. Because we used to always have to go get kegs to drink on Monday. We're closed on Mondays.
Oh.
So we're like, why don't we just stay open on Mondays? So we convinced Wills, like, hey, we'll get stand up and we can do sketch groups could fill the place. Like we give each of them like a Monday for like a summer. Mm-hmm. So that's how like they all got to meet each other. And then we did like 3 stand up sets, and then there was a sketch group.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was just like this one. People are like, I don't want to go to the Punchline. Right? You're not even on the show. Where are you going? I go, I want to see this guy who's on the Get Rich Bitch on the Rick James tour.
Yeah.
From Chappelle show. I go, I want to see the white guy in that show. Then we can leave. We don't have to stay for Charlie Murphy. Like, I just want to see that guy. Like, oh, okay. So I go, he's hilarious. And then I leave. And then so like I told you we'd leave. So we're going outside, and he's outside, like because his set's done. He's just chilling,
hanging out.
Yeah, like outside. And I'm, hey man, that was great. He's oh cool. He goes, you want a CD? The thing is when you have CDs, if it's a comic, it's free. That's why I lose my ass in Atlanta. It's like comic, people from fucking Tennessee come over. Oh, Barney's getting those CDs. So I go, I don't have any. He goes, nah, take it. I'm like, cool. So cut to like whatever a year later, Mitch dies, and me and Molly, who was the door girl, who's now the head booker of all the punchlines, we drove to the funeral, or whatever, the memorial.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way, we're just so sad. So on the way down, I'm like, "Oh, hey, let's play this Mitch, let's play this Bill Burr CD."
Oh.
So I play the Bill Burr CD, and it's like, it's great. Cut to, and then I moved to L.A. Then I get a call like in August, and she goes, hey, how you doing? Like, oh, I'm okay. She goes, hey, congratulations, I heard you're now the booker. She goes, yeah. She goes, and guess who the first person I booked is? And I go, I don't know. She goes, Bill Burr. And she goes, guess who's featuring for him? I go, me? She goes, yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
And then, so it was like one of her first weeks of bookings. She was all kind of nervous, you know? And so she, like, first night, I did my, like, I did one of my jokes about gay people, and it goes over, and then and people laugh by the end of it. At the beginning, they're tense and angry.
Yeah.
It's my style.
Yeah, like I said.
so he's like, he looked at Molly after like 2 minutes. He's like, I like this guy. I fucking like this guy. I like this guy. You know how he talks. Like, I like this fucking guy. This guy. Because he goes, I just love how you just never back down. He goes, by the end of the joke, after 3 minutes, they're like, we're gonna laugh because this guy's not changing. Like, he's not backing down. So, and that's literally how it started. And then we just became more and more better friends. And then we started going to sporting events. And then we just,
Yeah, similar interests, but
yeah,
but that's how it started.
That's how it all started. So Mitch Hedberg,
that's
basically,
wow.
That's how it started.
That's a you guys are a dynamic duo, but but yeah, that was the cool thing. Some of the feedback I got from the show last year is like, because we barely knew each other when we did that last year, and I had watched some of your stuff just to see what your style was like. Cause I was like, because I'm kind of similar where like I bring up something where you think I'm gonna like say something profound or something, you know what I mean, and then I just left turn you,
Right.
So it was cool to like watch your stuff before, because then I was like, okay, like it won't, because I was like, oh, if you were like a clean comic or something like that, I would have been like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, kind of thing. But
you did such a great job. You did such a great job. It was so fun having you. It really, I couldn't have been more impressed. And it was funny because I said, do like 15 minutes. It was going good, like do 20, but whatever. Just have fun. That's all we told. Just have fun. And then I told Wysocki, like do a couple minutes in between, not knowing how you would do, and because I wanted to have him have some more fun, and but then it was so packed, and so many Pittsburgh dignitaries, like high up Live Nation guy, Clear Channel guys, on air Live Nation people, Clear Channel, Penguins people, they're all standing.
Yeah.
So I like the whole time. So I'm like, hey, Mike, people are like standing. Like, just bring me up.
Yeah.
Like it's already a long night.
Yeah.
But you did phenomenal.
I really, I
you
still
did
like really appreciate that.
Oh, we're gonna have fun next week too.
Yeah, like it really.
I guarantee they'll have 5 new minutes. Just kidding. No, I have a bunch of new shit. We'll see how.
I mean,
works,
yeah. Even since I told you, like when I saw you, when I ran into you at the Ice House, like, dude, some of your new stuff is, me and it, like, well, you don't know, but like me and Sean have been talking about your set for like since we saw it. Like,
thank you.
As soon as you brought it up, like, I don't want to ruin your joke, but when you brought up the Chinese balloon.
Okay, it has to be. We have to shock people. That only works when you hear it once.
Oh my god, yeah, that. Siri. But yeah, we were so pumped just to even hear it again. Like that's so
oh, right on.
Yeah, man, you've definitely been working because your new stuff is killer. But
you got to. I think that's the thing. You can't sit on. I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus. But when you don't get out and put the work in, it shows. And and I think that's what keeps Bill on top and kept Chris Rock on top. Is these guys, they go to this comedy store, they go to the Improv, they go to Jay Davis gigs and just keep grinding and making money. And a lot of people, I think, just they only go to shows where they sell thousands of tickets, or they think it's great because no one's ever said it wasn't.
100%.
And then one day they wake up and they're like, "Why is this? This is not funny." Like, and I'm like, I don't want to.
Well, that goes back.
I don't want to talk in circles, but I remember.
Yeah.
I remember Stern telling somebody this, like, just hey, read a newspaper, like write a joke.
Yeah.
you know what I mean, like.
Well, I think it's a testament too, because like obviously you're at the point where you're only doing like big clubs and like
No, not at all. I mean, well, I'm not trying to knock at anybody's gig, but where you saw me Thursday?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to say is that you still are doing shows like that and working on your stuff, because it is like it's noticeable, like someone for coming up for me, like sometimes I see this person and I'm like I saw this on your special like 25 years ago, you know what I mean, and you're still which it can be here and there, but it's just funny because you. Again, you fuck around with the crowd. You like, sometimes they'll go up there and they'll just go right into the material and not do anything. You know what I mean? And it just shows as like someone who's coming up a little more. I definitely and again, what I was saying earlier about like every time I bring up your name to any of the comics, I know they have nothing but like good shit to say.
Well, thank you. That makes me happy to hear. It makes my mother happy to hear that people like me. But please, YouTube fans and fans of August, I did not come here to have my ego massage for an hour and a half. It's nice, but I feel I'm trying to. It's just weird when people talk nice about you. It really is.
I mean, well, like I said, you really did it. Like it was really cool to do that show last year, and I can't wait to do it again.
Well, it's paying it forward, because I know people that have brought me back home, and then your family gets to see you, and you get to see your family, and it's and friends, and I wanted to do that for other people, and you're a good guy, so it's like it was very easy to do, and you were funny, which made it really easier.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, right.
Thank God.
I know you were cracking me up at the Ice House when you told me that. You were like, I just like to hang out with you, but it was a bonus that you were actually funny. I was like, yeah, it meant a lot, but I can't wait to do it again next week, man.
Well, yeah, because some of it is now. when you're on I'm not trying to denigrate myself, but I guess I am a little bit. When you're on my level, like it's like it's like the tickets aren't exorbitant, and and I knew Mike was good. It's like it's like it's like it wouldn't be the end of the world if you were not good.
Exactly.
But when you pay a lot of money to see someone like Bill or Chappelle or something, and that first person's awful. Mm-hmm. That's like really bad,
right?
Or you know what I mean? Or the people that bring people that suck just so they can look better themselves, which obviously I never understood that.
Me neither. I'd rather someone do well before me. Yeah.
It's much easier to ride a wave than to create one.
100%.
There's nothing. It's so much better when someone's killing. You go up right after. Like, isn't that great? Like,
Yeah, and it is nice though, because you've been in this business forever, but it's like there are a lot of like. You run into some narcissist or something like that who just, like you said, they don't want someone to
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't either. Like even last night I was telling you when I did the story, I was like, as soon as my buddy Alan went up and killed, I was like, put me up now. Like I want to go after him. Because,
right.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I guess it's just a personal preference.
It's not, and a lot of it isn't even like narcissism. It's being scared. Mm-hmm. It's the inverse of narcissism, or not the inverse is, but it's not being it's not being confident. It's being the word isn't confidence. Esteem. It's you don't think you can do it. You want it to be terrible, so then you look a little better, as thinking like I want it to be as good as it can possibly be.
So, how I usually end the show,
that's what I figured. I'm like, if you're hanging out with people, you were hanging out with good. I more or less judge people. Very few, unless the open mic scene. But when you were hanging out with like Vinny, and it's like when you hang out with people that are funny. Most people don't hang out with people that aren't funny.
True.
Like the people you're hanging out with, I'm like, he's got to be able to do like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like Vinny Fastlane would be hanging out with someone that can't do like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So if he does 10, it's great. Last 5, it's like it'll work out. Let him go see his mom.
I mean, yeah. Dude, I mean, when you asked me, like, I was so excited, and like I literally ran around town. And was like, I got to get all these spots to get my shit ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I remember you called me the day before. You're like, you want to do 20? And I was like, okay, now I got to do all my shit. You know what I mean? It's like, but I mean, it made me, again, it just like.
And that's the way you get better is whenever someone books you to do a half hour and like, I only got 20. And it's like, well, I just do everything. You do everything. That's what's funny when people say, I have 45 minutes. Like, you have 45 minutes if everything goes right.
Mm-hmm. And even like last night, I did, Vargas' show, and like, it's a lot of like, comics that are, at my level, still starting out and stuff, and getting to, hopefully one day be where you're at. But when I told them, I'm like, I'm doing 20 minutes. They're like, 20 minutes? Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, dude, I did it last year. They're like, you did 20 last year? You know what I mean? It's like, it made this next year so much, I don't think it's a coincidence that I did that. And now I've done the improv. I've done this, store now. I've done, like I didn't, I don't think it's a coincidence that my 5 is, my 10 now is like so strong from doing that 20,
It's little increments. Here's how funny life is, right? Or like, whatever. My first paid gig ever, they were doing 7-minute things for the internet that was brand new.
Wow.
And it was brand new, whatever was going on the internet.
Yeah.
And they were paying $50 a spot.
Wow.
And they go, can you, and it's 7 minutes. And I had to tell Will's assistant at the time, I go, I don't have 7 minutes. And she goes, just do 5, sweetie. Well, someone else can do an extra minute.
I love the response. Just do 5, sweetie.
And now, literally, like I'm not. I'll do gigs anywhere.
Yeah.
But if someone's like, it's like 7 to 10 minutes. Like, how far? Like, I can't even drive for less than 10 minutes.
Right.
It's just like I can't get warmed up. It's like I can't.
And almost your style just changes with the time or whatever.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what's tough on some of these gigs. Is some of these showcase gigs that you're doing like 7 to 10, because I'm a little rough around the edges for some people, especially in today's day and age. And by the time they get to know you, it's over. So you have to do the easy ones, or the ones that are like everyone can get behind.
Yeah.
And then by the time you dip into a couple you like or newer stuff, then it's like, oh, it's over. So now 100%. It's like it's got to be like at least 12 minutes.
That's what I was gonna
have a couple fun myself.
When you asked me how it went last night, that was exactly what I did 7, and I was like, fuck, like I was right. I was just getting them good, you know what I mean? And then the light, I'm like, no, like
yeah,
and then I almost kind of was like, do I start another bit or do I just end on this good one? You know what I mean? And then so I ended up just ending it. You know what I mean? But I could have done, way more. Like
it happens to everybody not named Bill Burr and Joe Rogan.
Right.
Because we all have to get off.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
I didn't even feel comfortable. Like I closed the improv last night. And it was like, I think I don't want to, I don't want to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so what am I going to do? I'll talk a little bit and then, that's good enough. We're done. Because if not, you just feel like it's not exactly.
Well, I always end the show with doing kind of like a rapid fire questions kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Craig Kilborn style.
Yeah, it doesn't. The answers don't have to be.
How old are you? You remember Craig Kilborn was on ESPN?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't have to answer.
I just turned 30 last month, so.
I don't even know what that is. So he was on SportsCenter when you were growing up?
Yeah, it was like Dan Patrick, him, right?
Oh, yeah. No, Craig Kilborn, he's the best.
Yeah, yeah.
Because in the morning it was always SportsCenter and then like the hot chicks doing exercise.
Yeah, they were doing like beach volleyball stuff too.
Yeah, like they were exercising though. Like here's Kiana doing curls, right? It's like and then Craig would always be like, "Remember, kids, stretch." Yeah, it was the best.
So again, rapid fire, kind of not rapid fire, but the first question I'll ask you, if you had like a starting 5, so it doesn't have to be like my favorite, it's just like I always say starting 5 of your top 5 like favorite athletes, who would you pick?
Oh man. Well, Mario, Sid, Yager, Gino. I guess I no. It's so. Okay, well, I have to go. I really can't.
I love that you named all Pens.
I really. It's really like it's almost like they're all Penguins. Or they're all Steelers. It's like it's hard to. It's. I'll go. Well, you know what? If I don't, I'm gonna say Mario, Yogs, Mean Joe, Franco, and I don't know, because then it's hard because I love Sid and Gino. It's
such a married.
It's such a tie.
Yeah.
And kind of Willie Stargell and Dave Parker, but nah. I'd have Sid, Mario, Yags, maybe Tony Dorsett.
Ooh.
When I was a kid, maybe Tony Dorsett. Tony Dorsett was a big time. I'm trying. Clyde Vaughn. Old pit guard. That's way before your time.
Yeah,
I used to love
I don't know who.
Oh, Patrick Ewing. I loved Pat when I was growing up. Pat. Oh, I got it. This really is it. This from childhood. This is really This is it. Okay, I'll name it. Frank is from childhood. Franco, Mean Joe, Lambert, Lemieux, Dr. J.
Oh, that's a good 5. That's a really good 5.
Dr. J. Because Yogg's a little bit older for you, but no, probably not Lambert or probably Lambert. I know Lambert's way up there. Franco's way up there. Mean Joe, Franco, Lambert, Mario, and Yogg's. That would be it. But Dr. J is definitely not. I love Doctor. The Doctor was the man.
And now, same question, but comedians.
Now is it like fame? Like, is Eddie Murphy still considered a comedian?
Yeah, like all time. Like who? Like
okay.
It could be someone from it could be Red Fox or whoever.
Okay. Eddie Murphy, Rodney Dangerfield, Chris Rock, Bill Burr, Dave Attell.
Another great list. I loved your athletes list because I've had a lot of people on here and they're not Pittsburgh people, so I like getting the Pittsburgh list out. I love that. Okay, do you have like a favorite like I'll give you 2. You can just say favorite movie of all time, and then maybe like favorite comedy. Do you have like a favorite like old comedy movie that was like your favorite?
There's a comedy movie, Animal House, Back to School.
I always say old school, which I feel like is my generation's Animal House kind of thing.
Yeah, Animal House, Back to School. Either Animal House or Back to School. There's probably some other ones in there too, but I love Trains, Planes, and Automobiles too. That's an underrated.
Such a good movie.
Yeah. When I was a kid though, probably Animal House, and then or Back to School still holds up. Back to School is the best.
John Candy is such a good comedic actor.
And then regular movie wise, they're all Italians. I mean, Goodfellas, Godfather 1, Godfather 2, Rocky. Yeah, it's one of those ones. It's one of those 4. Goodfellas, but the end I don't like is he's a rat.
Mm-hmm.
But the end, but it's Goodfellas, and then it's so hard to pick between 1 and 2 because when I was growing up, my dad had the Saga on VHS. So it's like I didn't even know what was 1 and what was.
It was just all one movie.
It was all. And I love 2, but I don't like Vegas as much as any of 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like I probably like 1 better, but De Niro as Godfather is my favorite part of any of them combined.
This one would be a good question because I know you're a big dog guy. Obviously, Sandy being here. What's your favorite dog breed?
Oh, mutt.
Just a mutt. Just Rosie.
Every mutt. Well, I think Rosie's 100% German Shepherd.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Ruby, my old dog, is a mutt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think mutts are always the best.
That's great.
Mutts are and they're the ones from the pound. And I'm a mutt. I'm half Italian and half white mutt. Like, mutts are there. We're fucking. Yeah.
I'm Italian and Greek, so I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last question, which is always my favorite question, is if you had any superpower, what would your superpower be?
Oh, man.
I always say teleport.
I was thinking fly, but teleport's like to the next level. Yeah.
I was gonna say you could just be at your next gig like that, and not have to. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how much I hate TSA.
That's why I was waiting. I was gonna wait because I was like, I bet he's gonna say teleport. But you were thinking fly, but then usually someone says fly, and then I say teleport. And like, wait, no, I would rather do that.
Yeah, like you had this question, remember? You knew what you were gonna say. Yeah, teleport's a good. Yeah, because I don't want to be creepy. Like X-ray vision or anything like that. Like, I don't care, and I don't want to like know what people are gonna say. Like I'm not that.
I had one guy come on and he said he wishes he could like heal people, and I'm like, but dude, then you'd have all you would do all day was heal people. Like you know what I mean? I'm like the
Is
line.
that his superpower though? Superheroes don't do that.
Yeah, I guess not, right? Like he ended up switching his answer because
yeah, he's like, wait, I want to teleport. I want to help people.
Yeah, he's like, no, I want to teleport. Yeah.
Well, that's going to be that's almost like when you play Sega. It's like, hey, you just can't be Lemieux.
Yeah.
Or you can't believe the Penguins.
Yeah, it's
that's literally was always.
We do it like you can't be Michael Jordan when we play like NBA. Yeah.
That's almost you have to say like you can have any super except teleport. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be the number one answer.
100%. Yeah. I mean every time I've brought it up, people were like, never mind, I'm switching my answer to that. So I always like asking that one. But
I like quick fire questions. That's good.
It's a fun way to end the show. I always feel like. But everyone watching, I'm gonna get this edited and put out before our show, so we can get a little more extra level of promotion on the end.
Yeah, I'll put it out soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably tomorrow. That's what I'll do.
Oh,
sweet. Edit all day. So,
sweet.
Is there anything else?
I hope people aren't saying me like, oh, I don't want to go see this guy. He talked about himself for an hour and a half.
No, I mean, that is the podcast, and like I said, they're sick of hearing about me. So it was nice to have you be able to tell us all those stories, and literally, it's really cool to have someone, be able to tell us some stories from coming up in the comedy community, and like I said, I mean, every time I bring up your name to any comic, they know who you are. So it's really cool hearing
good or bad. No, but I try to be nice to everybody. That's one thing I was raised right.
You were.
Like if you aren't nice to people, I don't get that.
Well, it's
it literally blows my mind when people aren't nice to people.
It's one of those things where like you treat everybody the same, that's a testament. You know what I mean? Like you're not kissing the asses of A-listers. Like you treat everybody well, and you treat everybody.
Thank you. That's really how my dad raised me. Really,
and
like,
that's why
treat everyone the same. You see the same people on the way up, but you see on the way down, and you treat the janitor like the president.
And I think that's why it stands out to me so much, because like that's how my dad was too. He was very, very serious about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously he passed and stuff. So it's something that I've like. I'll never be as good at it as he was, but I tried. I definitely tried to. So it definitely goes a long way with like that was one of the first things that got me to start hanging with Sean. Like he's that same way. So I really try to keep my circle with those kind of people. So
yeah, I mean my mother always said your friends, like that's who your friends are makes a big. Like you want to have good friends.
100. It keeps it. Yeah, like it definitely like. And I love hanging out with you and your buddies. It really like I'm just a fly on the wall, like hearing your guys' stories and just like and stuff. So it's been really cool, and I really appreciate like
it was fun. I'll do this anytime. We should just have our own podcast. I guess you have your own podcast. It's funny. Anyway, we'll talk off air. But we're done.
Yeah. Come to the show next week. Follow Joe.
April Fool's Day.
Follow Joe on Instagram and.
I'm Mr. Joe Bartnick on Instagram, only because I was hacked. I was like 3 and put it on Instagram.
Really?
Yeah, I was stupid. It's a good way to end. I guess a little tip: if you're ever hacked, do not go online and say you were hacked. Because the people that say they're going to help you, they're not going to help you.
Oh shit!
So I literally had to have like my agent like call, and
shit.
It was like we went. Yeah, like if you're, I'm not special of anything. But if you're like a regular person, like you're not going to get helped.
Yeah, I know.
Like CAA had to like.
Yeah,
my agent's on CAA, but for the show it was. Anyway, some big phone calls were made.
Gotcha.
For me to get.
Well, yeah. Follow Joe when the special comes out. Watch his special, and we're gonna be at the Club Cafe in Southside next Saturday. So week from today. So, Joe, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, it was awesome, man. Thanks for the Modelos. Oh, yeah. Salute.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Sense of Humor TV out.